We are live, and let me tell you, Monday Night Raw yesterday was a pretty eventful one. We had a big return in Mia Yim, now being the problem solver, the Rhea Ripley problem that we had with the OC in Judgment Day. We had Austin Theory cash in Money in the Bank yesterday on the United States Championship in an open challenge. We're going to talk about that. Is it the worst cash-in of all time? We've got a few cash-ins we'll probably discuss throughout the stream today. As well as that, the first War Games match has been announced as well. We'll be talking about that. And the 24/7 Championship, no more? We'll have to wait and see. It felt like it was going towards the bin. It went to the side of the bin. It still sounded like it didn't end well. But we're going to be discussing all that and more, plus answering your questions in the comment section below. I'm joined by the one and only NXSTEVE in-house. How are you doing, my friend? And what an eventful Monday Night Raw this week.
I'm very good. Thank you for asking, Steve. As again, it's always a pleasure to be on this channel. As for Raw, it was okay for most parts, but just very confusing for a couple of other bits. And yeah, it just really didn't make sense. It was really, really strange.
Absolutely. I mean, the thing is, the show really had quite a lot of building going for it. I love the build with the Usos and the New Day going into Friday, certainly up until Real got involved. Anyway, the Bong Joke is certainly getting as far as it can for me. But like I said, there were some great moments. I like the stare down with Bianca and Rhea Ripley in the backstage area as well. Are we teasing that for War Games? What's the story with that? We'll have to wait and see. And like most of them segment things we talked about up until the main event, I was quite invested. But I suppose let's start then with the big talking point, the cliffhanger from Raw, obviously, is Austin Theory, that Money in the Bank cash-in. So Seth Rollins wanted to have an open challenge. There was rumors that was going to be happening at Crown Jewel. It didn't happen. Instead, he did it on Raw. The first one to answer it was Finn Balor, and the entire Judgment Day came out. The OC came out as well. That's why we got the confrontation between the two stables. Seth thought, I know what I'm doing. I'm getting out of here. For a brief moment, I thought maybe that feud was going to go into War Games for the Raw side with the men. But instead, we got the Rhea Ripley problem solved, which we had Mia Yim. Seth Rollins was then backstage for the rest of the evening until the main event segment. He came out again. Looked like it was going to be Mustafa Ali that was going to answer it. Bobby Lashley attacked Mustafa Ali, said he was the one that was going to do it, came out to ringside, and of course, he's been a bit more brutal, Bobby Lashley, recently. The match didn't get started, completely took out Seth Rollins. Austin Theory came out and thought, it's an opportunity here. I'm going to go and cash in my Money in the Bank on a championship that I could have already walked out and challenged for twice already tonight, and already had won earlier this year without a Money in the Bank briefcase. Now, yes, there's no Roman Reigns. Yes, Seth was very vulnerable, but I thought that the whole process of Money in the Bank was to go for a world championship. Now, we did tease recently about going to NXT to try and beat Bron Breakker. I thought that was creative, thought it had been different. We've never seen it before. We've never seen this before, but it didn't kind of work out for Theory either because, well, he didn't succeed. Okay, he did hit his big moves. They were kicked out of. But then when it looked like he was going to get the win, the ref was knocked out. Bobby Lashley came out and completely annihilated him to the point that I thought, okay, he's going to get counted out. We knew he wasn't going to win at this point. I thought, well, at least getting counted out then at this point because Lashley looked strong. He still gets back into the ring, gets a curb stomp for his trouble. For me, I just feel like the poor boy got buried. He's been losing and losing and losing. He'd finally got a victory early in the night, by the way, over Shelton Benjamin, which is no small feat. But at the same stage, he's still on his back by the end of the night and now without a Money in the Bank. How do you feel about this entire ending to Monday Night Raw?
It's almost very disappointing, if I'm honest. We was just talking the other day on the review for Crown Jewel, and I was saying, do you know what? Have Austin Theory just go on a losing streak to the point where he has an opportunity to cash in and win the title. And I was just like, it would get massive major heel heat on him. But he seems to have heel heat with someone in the back because I just don't understand. Like we were saying just before we come in there, why you would cash it in on a secondary title or a mid-card title on the US, something that he's already held as well. So it wasn't even like Intercontinental Championship like with Gunther or something. And yeah, it just doesn't make sense. Like I'm sitting here debating now, is it the worst cash-in of all time? Because it just I don't know if he's done something wrong to someone or there's just a plan for it in the long run, whether to rebuild him, to start again and kind of erase essentially the Vince McMahon part of Austin Theory, so he could just be Austin Theory.
Could be an interesting proposition. I think the key thing you said there in particular, which I definitely would agree with, Vince McMahon. It was a Vince McMahon project. It was a Vince McMahon decision. It's not ironic that on the same show, the last two real things that felt very Vince McMahon were killed off in the last 20 minutes of the show, the 24/7 championship and Austin Theory's Mr. Money in the Bank. I think a lot of people at the time screamed this was a bad idea when Theory won it. I thought it was a great idea. I thought, right, okay, Theory in a year's time may be ready. Not going to take it off Roman, not going to get it at WrestleMania. Leave it to the very last day. I thought that was the point. You could have a different person at that point. And if he wasn't ready then by the last day, you still have a new storyline that you've never seen before. But here's what I think. You've mentioned Vince McMahon. Triple H has got different plans for Austin Theory. It's not involved in the main event right now. It's been clear for a little while that that's not the direction. The other thing that I do think in my head is that Money in the Bank has been rumored to no longer be a premium live event in 2023. That it's going to move back to WrestleMania, one night for the women, one night for the men on WrestleMania. Now, if that's going to be the case scenario, Austin Theory couldn't still be Mr. Money in the Bank when these matches come around. We need to get the briefcase off of him. Now, is it the right way? Is it the wrong way to do it? For me, no. I don't like it going for the secondary title. That's why I think there's a good argument. It could be the worst cash-in of all time. We're going to go through a couple of the bad ones in a minute, and we will say hello to the chat. So thank you to everyone that's been joining us. But I just feel to myself, Austin Theory, there were different ways you could have done this. He could have just gone and tried to cash it in on Roman and lost. No one ever believed he would beat Roman, but at least he would have gone for a world championship. Now, the positive about this, I'm sorry, Steve, the positive about this, it's a big talking point coming out at the end of Monday Night Raw. That's one thing that's positive. We're talking today. We've got a reason to do a podcast. That's pretty cool. We've got something that Triple H has given us for that, because there's been so many shows towards the end of Vince McMahon's era where it was just boring, nothing to talk about. There's something to talk about here, but this has to be probably one of the biggest clangers so far under the Triple H era for me.
I'd have to agree with you. It would make more everyone can take a loss to Roman Reigns. No one's ever going to be discredited for losing to Roman Reigns. For God's sake, he's been champion for over 2 years. He hasn't been pinned since 2017 or something stupid like that. It's ridiculous. And yeah, it just doesn't I don't know why they didn't get him to form a tag team and cash in for the tag team titles or something. Do you know what I mean? I think I'd have been more impressed with that, because it would have been something different. But for the fact that he's failed to cash in, I think is the biggest point of it. Like, if he'd have cashed in and won, I'd have been like, all right, cool. I'll allow it, because he still won the title. But the fact that he didn't win anything at all, I just think is the biggest mistake out of all of it. I mean, yeah, honestly, it's really weird. I mean, I agree with what you're saying. If they're going to put Money in the Bank on WrestleMania like it used to be before, totally makes sense. I presume Triple H just wants to get rid of all these gimmick-themed pay-per-views, which, to be fair, Money in the Bank I thought was like the fifth one, and it was now one of the big five, but I guess not. But yeah, it's really strange to see what they do with Theory. I mean, initially I thought, next week he'll come out and be like, oh no, I deserve to have my contract back because the match was interfered and I didn't get a proper shot and all this kind of stuff. And he very may well do that still, but instead of getting his contract back, he'll just get a one-on-one match with Seth Rollins for the US title.
Could be a way they could go down. It certainly would be a different avenue they could do. The thing is, for me, it's not just Austin Theory that I think got hurt here. I feel the Money in the Bank got hurt as well. This is a gimmick that has been well protected for many, many years, and it's kind of losing its way in the last few years. Men's side is losing its way a little bit. Maybe you could argue the women's as well. It seems to have to cash in within 24 hours of getting it. But at the same time, I'll go into more detail as well. I think it's hurt that as well in a couple of seconds. But first off, big hello to Jonesy Chats Wrestling. Says, good evening, Steve and Steve. Hope you are doing well. Wrestling with the Truth as well. Hope you guys are doing well. Thank you for checking out the stream. Jonesy says, Austin Theory, Money in the Bank run is useless as Otis. Wonder where he goes from here. Thank you, Jonesy, for asking that question, because that's something I wanted to answer, where I think it will go next, because there's no secret. Austin Theory, under this current Austin Theory, I think a lot of people are not on side of it. I think even Triple H is not on side of it. The selfie thing, not working. We've not even had a stare down with him and Tyler Breeze, for goodness sake. So you can tell Triple H bringing all these people back. He's not in favor of doing this gimmick. For me, he's been on a losing streak. And what I'm going to say is very key. What was his last rivalry? Johnny Gargano, someone who said he'd surpassed in a quick time. He said he could do it without Daddy in NXT. He was now the guy that had gone and won the US title, someone that was, Mr. Money in the Bank. He's got a massive losing streak for a number of months. If he continues doing that in the near future, I would not be surprised if he goes back to Daddy for guidance, because he is not ready to do it on his own. I can see a reformation of the way happening, if not by the end of 2022, by the start of 2023, because on Monday Night Raw right now, you've already got Johnny Gargano looking out for Dexter Lumis, who are part of the way together. Indy Hartwell, I'm sure, will be called up at some point in the very near future. Candice LeRae is already on Monday Night Raw, so that's an easy transition in there. Austin Theory, like I say, you've got the 5-piece group there. It's whether you want them as baby faces or as heels, depending on what you want to do with it. And of course, when Johnny was heel before, it was always in a comedic way. So that's what I think will be the long-term vision and plan. Because if I'm being honest, I don't think anyone of the way is doing anything meaningful right now on Monday Night Raw. And I think that just could be the natural way that they could go in the near future.
Yeah, I mean, like, I agree with that. I mean, if you have it as like Austin essentially goes back to Johnny with his tail between his legs and apologizes and says, like, do you know what, maybe I do need your help, then yeah, I'm cool with that. Like, I love the way on NXT, and like everything they did on NXT was great. So it makes sense. Then that way you've got more people teamed up together. That way there's more like screen time for people if they're all together in a faction. But then I suppose the other dynamic, if you went the way what I was saying, that if Austin was to come out next week, challenge Seth, he then wins that US title. You could then get an Austin-Johnny rivalry for that United States Championship, which could be a move up for Johnny, because at the minute he's kind of just stuck in this bit of a dead-end role in the middle of this whole Miz Dexter Lumis scenario.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm not a fan of that storyline at all, but I must admit, I thought the match was quite creative. I liked the finish of that match.
Good.
I thought the Miz did very well there at the end of that. But we'll continue on with our comments in the meantime. We've got Wrestling with the Truth saying, I feel like Triple H wanted the Money in the Bank off Theory because they didn't want Roman beat, and he wants to get the stink of Vince McMahon off of him, which I think is a very key point there. Like we said, whatever you want to do for repackaging going forward, now you haven't got the Vince tag there, because that's something that Vince did. If Austin Theory goes to do it, which, let's be fair, I think he's a future world champion, he can do it on his own with his own merit going forward under the Triple H booking and Triple H guidance.
I think I'm just trying to think of other scenarios that they could have done there. Like even they could have had someone win the briefcase off of Austin, like egg him on into a point where he could put it up for a This is why it's a shame like Cody's not around, because Cody would have been a perfect person to challenge him for that. You could have had an Austin Theory Cody Rhodes rivalry, accumulates with that Money in the Bank briefcase being on the line. Those two would have put on absolute great matches. It's just a shame that he's out injured, but I'm sitting there trying to rack my brain with, and I'm trying to think who could take that briefcase off of him. And I think because Roman's obviously top heel at the minute, there isn't a lot of people on the roster that you could, I suppose, legitimately give it to that could succeed before Mania with a cash in. So whoever was going to win it off him was probably going to lose. So yeah, for me, it would have been Cody. But I know what this guy's saying. Just get Vince McMahon off of it all and just restart him again. And yeah, it's a shame, because like I really thought this was going to be the thing that excelled Austin Theory as a top guy. And I guess he now has to start his whole rebuilding progress and start again and go back to whatever Triple H's initial idea is for him.
Absolutely, indeed. Then Wrestling with Truth goes on to say, Theory will be fine. He is a stud, and he now has something to overcome. And I completely agree with that comment. I think it's a fair comment that's been made there. What I would say is, go on, Steve. Go on. You take that first.
No, I was just going to say he's a great wrestler. His character works great, so he's going to recover from. I have no worries about Theory recovering from this, because everything he does is entertaining. Whether he's a heel, he's a great heel. Whether he's a face, he's a top face. So I totally believe that this guy's going to recover from it.
Certainly, indeed. And I will just say that I think the right place should have cashed in if he was going to win Money in the Bank would have been the NXT Championship. Because imagine Austin Theory versus Braun Breaker as your main event of NXT Deadline in December the 10th. I think it could have been a fun show to have done that. Theory could have lost the championship, or it could have been a way to get Braun Breaker up to the main roster. But certainly, it is what it is. It's how it will be. The last comment I'm going to make on it, Money in the Bank, like I say, I think has been harmed by the fact that it's not a world championship. So I do think that there is a bit of repackaging to do with this going forward. WrestleMania, I think, is a good place because you're on the biggest show of the year to start off with. And hopefully Triple H, when we pick our next Money in the Bank winners, actually picks people and say, these people are going to be world champions. Because too many years in the past have been a situation where we haven't seen someone benefit. So let's talk about very quickly some of the worst cash-ins of all time. Damien Sandow, of course, 2013, had John Cena on the ropes, went in for a match, lost on Monday Night Raw, fell completely to mediocrity to the lower card, and eventually released. John Cena, the first ever one on Raw 1000, didn't successfully cash in. I think CM Punk was a DQ in that match. Of course, Baron Corbin, I think this is going to be a popular one with a lot of people, losing to Jinder Mahal in about 30 seconds when he'd actually annoyed people in the locker room.
And John Cena. Baron Corbin's weakness is a roll-up pin. Everyone does it to him. That's how he done. That's how he lost in literally 6 seconds.
Absolutely. Braun Strowman actually did cash it in at Hell in a Cell, but of course Brock Lesnar broke down the cell, which led that to a DQ finish. Number of DQs here. And of course, like we say, Otis just lost Money in the Bank. So did Mr. Kennedy in matches. So they didn't really count when they cashed in Money in the Bank because they just lost the briefcase. So, I mean, judging for me, I'm going to be honest. I think the Baron Corbin one really did stink, and because of the fact that Corbin lost in about 30 seconds to Jinder at the time. I would say as well, I got really annoyed with the Hell in a Cell DQ finishes. I'm not a fan of when they do that.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say this is now the worst cash-in of all time. Yes, Theory got a little bit of saving grace because of the fact Bobby Lashley annihilated him as well, like he did Seth Rollins earlier. And there's no shame in losing to Seth Rollins, by the way. We should clarify that as well, along with Roman Reigns. But to go for the United States Championship, when you held that title earlier in the year, when you had 2 chances to answer an open challenge earlier in the night, it's just a bit of backwards booking for me.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, I'm the same with you. The Hell in a Cell one, the fact that Brock breaks into the cage, hits him a couple of times with some broken segments of a table. He then F5s Brock and F5s Roman, and the ref just ends the match. I think he's stupid. And it seems to be like just a running thing with Hell in a Cell matches that they just end in no contest, which I think is really stupid. The Jinder one, I didn't mind. I think more importantly, it's the fact that John Cena's involved in 3 of them because he was the failed cash in. Like, he cashed in on Punk, which he announced when he was in the challenge in, which I was never a fan of because it's not really a great face prop. He was the reason Baron Corbin lost because he was a distraction on the outside of the ring because Baron interfered in the initial match between the 2 of them, and then obviously he was a part of it. And then what was the second one? Oh, the Damien Sandow one was against John Cena. Damien Sandow absolutely destroys him, puts him against the barricade, wraps his arm around the ring post, and then Sandow cashes in, and John Cena beats him one-handed with an FU, and it's like it just seems to be John Cena for the first 3 was the initial problem. But yeah, I agree with you. The fact that it's a mid-card title, I just think is, and the fact that he'd already won it and he'd missed the open challenges, this has to be the worst one of all time.
There we go. That's our feel on it. Let us know what you think in the comments section. Wrestling with the Truth, people will remember the failure, but as they say, even bad publicity is better than none. Just straight up lost to Roman, gets lost in the shuffle, which I think is a fair argument. And look, we are talking about it. Like I said, it's a positive. We come out of Raw, we've got something to talk about. Austin Theory has that, that feeling now. He needs revenge. He needs to get himself back on the ladder at some point after this.
I suppose with the plus side that this is now a dynamic that they can use going forward when it comes to writing promos for someone against Austin Theory. That they can turn around and be like, mate, you tried cashing in for the United States Championship and failed. Do you know what I mean? I suppose it's a good prop they can use going forward, but yeah, it's still the worst one.
Absolutely, indeed. The Jones are going to say the booking of Gargano, Loomis, and Theory shows they have no way, like we did there, to progress to the upper levels of WWE. All 3 treated horrible. I think under Triple H that I think at least 2 out of the 3 have potential to get to the top, despite however they've been booked in recent times.
To be fair, I haven't actually minded Johnny. He's been like his matches have all been solid.
Yes,
which is the most important thing. His character work up until Raw last night, I thought all his character work has been great, but when he was doing the whole fast forward in the body cam footage, I was like, yeah, this is stupid. You really needed to cut this down. This is way too long. But otherwise, I think he's been doing fine. Dexter Lumis, yeah, this is it's a stupid story, and this is unfortunately the way that they're going to get themselves out of it. But yeah, I'm saying with you, Austin Theory and Johnny, they'll be fine. Dexter Lumis, I just think he'll just be a guy in the locker room. He'll be essentially a worker or a body for going forward at the minute because I've got no reason to be behind him at the minute.
No, fair play on that. And I think that's a fair argument to make. I would probably agree. Funny, you knew which one I thought wouldn't be the world champion, by the way. Now that lineup. Jonesy says, heard today that The Rock and Roman could be a tag match to save both Roman and Rock both taking a pinfall, I'm guessing, for WrestleMania 39. If that was a scenario, I suppose it's sensible, but you really want to have the singles match, don't you?
Just take the titles off of Roman. I don't know how you're going to do it, but like I was watching, I have to find the YouTube channel, but there's a guy who does he creates his own narratives, and he had this one for CM Punk returning, and they had the whole dynamic of Roman defending one title on one night and the second title on the second night against Cody and Punk, and it was really great. I thought it was really ingenious, but it all depends on Rock's availability, obviously, but I don't understand why you would have this, man. It's like Rock is a face. He's always going to be a face. And the way that Roman's being portrayed at the minute, how are you going to put them together in a tag match to save them both? I don't know.
I suppose whoever they go as their partners, they would be the ones that could take the pinfall. I guess the early thought process, not that I think that this would happen, but you could always do, for example, Roman and Jey Uso against The Rock and Sami Zayn, because that's kind of where the most key components of the bloodline are elsewhere. But I don't think that that's what they'll do.
Yeah, but that's mean it's not a big money match, is it?
No.
It's a tag team match, and your biggest champions in a tag team match on WrestleMania. I mean, I'm sorry, this ain't WrestleMania 1. So do you know what I mean? We've sort of moved with the times, and like your top guy should be the main event, and it should be a 1-on-1 or even a triple threat or a fatal 4-way, but not a tag team match, man. No way.
No, I would agree with that. Jonesy goes on the same. Money in the Bin should be the new name. Well, I thought it was a 24/7 championship these days, but that's my take on it anyway. Jonesy, it's a big talking point because it's such a baffling decision and not for good reasons. This is needing to be discussed. Is Triple H secretly consulting Vince? Some of the recent decisions are baffling. Definitely not. I think Triple H is doing. This is what I'm going to say. I think the honeymoon period is going to start going away. I'm going to actually take this comment away, Jonesy. No offense, but you can't really see my chin very well. So, I would say that I don't think that Vince is involved in any way. I think Triple H is doing the best of his ability. I think the television product is much more watchable. I think it's much more fun. Yes, there are a couple of things that have not gone right. We discussed them on this channel last week. Karrion Kross's booking's been a bit baffling. We mentioned a couple of other decisions as well. The Damage Control, how they've perhaps been booked and portrayed, losing key matches. But you're not going to get everything right. I mean, you look back even to any era of wrestling, nothing's crystal clear, 100% perfect. You go for the Attitude Era, there's stuff in there that's absolutely god awful. There's stuff that's absolutely genius. Exactly, it's always my go-to. But I mean, choppy pee, awful stuff. I mean, who in their right mind would want to see that stuff? But that was linked in the same time as Steve Austin probably stunning Vince McMahon, which we thought was awesome at the time. So it's finding the good and the bad and just taking with it.
Yeah, I mean, it just shows Triple H is human and he's not going to get everything right.
Absolutely. And the thing is as well, we're still very new to this. So would it be fair to say that he could be still teething at this stage?
No, because even when he was running NXT, there was stuff in NXT that wasn't perfect. Like, for as good as NXT, what Black and Gold NXT was, all the stories they came out of, the rivalries they had, there was still stuff in there that absolutely sucked. And it was like, it just shows that he's not human. It's just a case of now, because it's Raw and SmackDown, I suppose there are more eyes on him and he has to be a bit more critical with his decision making. But like I said, it's all a learning process for him. It's awkward for him essentially writing Raw and SmackDown, because I presume he doesn't have any input on NXT anymore. I think that's probably left down to Shawn Michaels. But I'd like to say, I just think it's a lot harder when you're, instead of stuck with say 30 wrestlers in NXT, you've now got 100 wrestlers across 2 shows. So I imagine he's just got a lot on his plate.
Yeah, I imagine so as well, and I agree with that. And Jones is coming in, Money in the Bank, useless as a contenders match. Sadly, hope it can improve in the future. It all comes down to the booking of the winners. That's what it comes down to. In recent years, especially for the men, it's not really had so many successful cash-ins. But if they can find the right people that do so, I don't think it's completely damaged for good. But I would say that certainly last night did harm it, in my opinion. But fingers crossed, I don't think it's finished as a concept completely.
Yeah, I think if you give them, if they're going to put it on Mania this year, watch what happens with the winners this year, because I imagine Triple H has probably looked at the winners of the women's one before and previously gone, why have 4 of the 5 of them, or however many there have been, have all cashed in within 24 hours? And it's like it's a great prop that needs to be utilized in the best way over the next 12 months. And yeah, like I said, I have faith that the next 2 winners will go on to do better things and both cash in successfully.
And have a journey. I think that's important as well. A journey is very important. Wrestling with the Truth. Cody needs to win the title straight up. Money in the Bank is a heel tool for the title a la Edge. I love the a la that's been put in there. Absolutely. Yeah, I think personally for me, I would agree. I prefer heels having Money in the Bank. We said this earlier on in the stream as well there. So fingers crossed that will be the case. Shout out to Robbie Collins in the house. How are you doing, Robbie? Thank you for checking out the stream. If you've got any questions, feel free to jump in as well. I'm sure that we'll be answering quite a few over the next period of time that we are live. And we are live, baby. Kofi Weedston in the house as well. The Dirty Heels podcast, fantastic podcast on YouTube, on Twitch as well. Make sure to drop them and subscribe. Thank you for checking us out as always. Jones is saying, I don't like him jobbing to The Miz. Is a third wheel in this never-ending Miz versus Loomis storyline regarding Johnny Gargano there, which is, I mean, he is kind of a third wheel at the moment. But as I say, I think it could be building. This could be building to the way at some point in the future.
Yeah, and I think that it was it was a really good protected loss, like the fact that he used the turnbuckle strut to take him out. Like I said, I think it was it's a loss I'm quite willing to watch Johnny Gargano take because it just protects him.
Yeah, it was creative, that finish. I quite liked that, to
Yeah.
be fair, on the show, personally. Walter in house says, hi, Steve. How was your day? It's been very well, thank you. Thank you for checking out the stream. How's your day been, Steve?
My game has actually been all right. My wife's got kidney stones, so it's kind of I'm on bed duty, like I'm on. Do you know what I mean? I'm on looking after her for the last couple of days, but apart from that, yeah, it's been all good.
We wish her very well, very quickly, is what we'll say there. But thank you very much, Walter, for your question. Jonesy says, who do you want to be behind scripts? The last vignette was so Retribution-like. I'd personally like to see Ali. I mean, that would not be a demotion. Someone like Dijakovic as well, was T-Bar is meant to be rumored to go back to NXT. I don't know at this point, and I'm actually wondering if it's going to be one person like portrayed at the moment, or if it end up being a group.
I don't think it'll be Ali, just because I personally think Ali's going to be the next person to take that US title. I think it's the writing is there for Ali to take that United States Championship off Seth Rollins. I don't honestly know. I mean, I was watching something about Dijakovic going back, and he's got some sort of Judge Dredd gimmick by the looks of it. He's going to come out and be like, "I'm the law" or something like that. But I just imagine it's probably going to be someone new, like probably maybe one of the new recruits. I don't think it's going to be a name that I suppose a lot of people are going to recognize. But yeah, just hopefully it turns out to be a lot better, because yeah, it is going very Retribution, like the whole vandalism stuff and kind of like that. But just hopefully it's just done well. And it, like, to be fair, Retribution was that bad. It's pretty hard to do it that bad twice in a row.
I completely agree with that. And I do feel you're right there. I mean, with NXT, it's really hard to guess because it could be literally anyone. Someone we've never
Yeah.
heard of could be behind it. It's like, oh, it's this person. Like, yeah, never heard of you,
Yeah,
but good to see
exactly.
you doing well. You've been doing well on the PC. That's good to see. But at the same time, if we're going to go with someone, why not? But let's be fun and go outside the box. Why not EC3 trying to control this narrative? There we go.
That's a great shout, by the way. That's a mad shout. I would actually love that because it actually makes sense. I love that idea. That's great. I would go with that as well. That's going to be from now on, anyone asks me, that's what I'm going to go with until it's revealed. That's a great shout.
Let's see how it will go. Circle Debate, thank you for checking this out. It says, how is you? We're doing very well, thank you. Thank you for checking out the stream. Hope you are keeping well. Jonesy had another comment as well. Interesting idea. Sammy wins Money in the Bank briefcase at Mania Night 1 and cashes it in on Mania Night 2. Book it. Love that idea. That's a great way to book around it.
Yeah, if you have Roman obviously beat Rock on night 2, main event, and Sammy comes out and cashes in, that would be mad. That would be great. Yeah, and but they need to hit that point now where they're building that story, because at the minute it's still all Jay and Sammy, and they need to start building that.
I think they will start to in the very near future, but I'm sure we're going to be talking on that more as we go along. Robbie Collins with his first question here for us says, see when Roman eventually loses the titles, what do you think he will move on to next? Looking a bit far ahead, but surely you don't just move on with him. Very interesting question, this one. I did have a theory about this a little while ago. It's still my same theory, just purely because of the fact that I currently haven't thought of anything better. Because I wouldn't be surprised if Roman took a break after WrestleMania, if that's when he lost the belts, for example. I wonder if Roman will go babyface as a head of the table style character. For me, I wouldn't be surprised if Solo Sikoa and the Usos turn on Roman, because Roman no longer is the head of the table because he's let the family down. Therefore, someone that's underneath says, we can be the next head of the table. It's almost bloodline versus bloodline still continued, but Roman against the Usos of the family.
I think if you play that into that whole Sami Zayn Money in the Bank cash in, so Sammy comes out night 2, cashes it in, the Raw after Mania, Roman comes out, re-challenges Sammy, loses again to Sammy on Raw, and then have them turn. That could be a great way. Then you could have such a beatdown that it beats him off telly, and it keeps him off TV until, like, I don't know, SummerSlam, Survivor Series, whatever. And then he just and bring him back as like a mystery person that he's taking out all the Usos one by one kind of thing.
I love that. And you know, we've combined 2 questions in one almost there. We've actually used continuity going on with that. So great job in the chat. And hopefully you like the answers. Circle Debate says, who do you see joining Bianca's group? Do you see Sasha and Naomi and Charlotte to Bayley's team? Love the suggestion there, Sasha and Naomi, because let's talk about it. War Games, the first match has been announced then for the War Games, which we know will be Bianca's team against Bayley's team. So Damage Control, technically at the moment, Bayley. We've got Dakota Kai, Io Sky, and Nikki Cross now. has joined that group as well. We've got one vacant space, which I think Charlotte would be a sensible addition. And on the other side, we know we've got then Bianca Belair, the Raw Women's Champion, along with Asuka and Alexa Bliss, with two other spaces where could we see a Sasha Banks or Naomi? Because, well, Boston, Massachusetts is the place for Survivor Series. And I'm going to give a shout out to Tom Colley, who was to do it once a video. There is heavy discussions going on with Sasha and Naomi over a new contract. I wouldn't be surprised to see, particularly of all of those names, Sasha included on the War Games match card if it was to go down.
Yeah, I mean, you sent me the poster earlier, didn't you? With like
Did, yeah.
there was a 10-person lineup, and I thought after obviously Raw last night, it kind of makes sense that the fifth member they will be recruited to Damage Control would be Rhea Ripley.
Yes,
because after Raw, and Rhea seems to be the next viable person to be going for that championship. She's the only one that's like on a high at the minute. So I think adding her to that dynamic is a sound option. And yeah, I think if you're going to do Naomi and Sasha, again, it's the whole thing if they want to bring them back as a tag team. I suppose if you bring them both back as a tag team up against the women's tag team champions, kind of makes sense. I mean, they would have to have them both come back at once. I don't think you could just, for instance, bring back Naomi and then bring back Sasha on the night. Wouldn't work for me. I think you'd have to leave them both as mystery opponents for the actual night.
Here's what I think then. I'm going back in the fantasy booking realm, everybody. I do apologize by continually doing this, but I get inspiration when I hear all these great chats and questions that come through. Like you said, the Rhea Ripley went the stare down, just a quick stare down when Bianca Belair on Raw. Does feel like it's a natural fit for her to be the final person on that team. And of course, Mia Yim coming in as well. Of course, that's a big part of this video as well. Mia Yim returning there, being a part of the OC. She volunteered to fix the problem on behalf of the OC. So it makes sense for her to be on the other side. Who are the other people that Damage Control wrote off TV? It was Candice LeRae. She's not been seen since the beatdown backstage a couple of weeks ago. That does make sense for your 5-on-5. But of course, someone could be written off of TV, which could lead to a Sasha Banks and or Naomi coming back in. I think with Charlotte, I still feel now in the back of my head that it could be the Rumble when she returns.
But then again, if you've got Alexa possibly being tied up with the whole Bray dynamic, that Alexa could get written off, so she can be taken out of it. So you could essentially just have Asuka, Bianca, Sasha, Naomi, and Candice as a team, possibly. Yeah. But yeah, like I said, it just depends on where they're going to go with it and who's going to be these extra members. Like I said, I imagine we probably won't find out who one of the members are until the final night, because I think it's more exciting that way, that if you have 5 versus 4 and a mystery opponent, I think it would just be a nice pop on the night.
It certainly will be indeed there. Just to say very quickly as well there, what would be your take on the Mia Yim return to Raw and helping with the OC? Obviously, was something that we discussed on this videos, on this channel, and a couple of them recently. It seemed to be quite popular with a lot of people in the chat at the time. I said I thought it would be Beth Phoenix, but you said it didn't make sense because of Edge, which, let's be fair, looking at long term, didn't make sense. Mia Yim's the one that's come in. It's quite a high prominent role, and to be fair, I thought it got quite a good reaction.
Yeah, I mean, this is another thing that plays into the War Games, because you don't know if like it's going to be a 4-on-4 elimination style where you have Mia Yim and Rhea Ripley in those positions as part of OC and Judgment Day. But on the return of Mia Yim, I think it's fantastic. She's a great wrestler. People are actually going to see what she's going to do now. The only sucky part was that I have to say the audience were absolutely dreadful last night. They were not reacting to anything like they should have. Like the fact that the biggest laugh on the night, I think, was Riddle with his bong. And like when Mia Yim come back, no reaction. it was I think the crowd turned down what should have been a really good pop. But no, she's a solid wrestler. Love to see her back. And hopefully, fingers crossed, maybe one day in the future, that means her husband, or one certain Mr. Keith Lee, will also return to WWE, because that I would absolutely love.
I would love to see that as well. I think that would be incredible. I have to agree with you. I've been watching quite a bit of Impact Wrestling, obviously outside of when I don't see WWE and AEW. So I've had the pleasure of watching Mia Yim's work in Impact through the summer. I loved her performances in the Queen of the Mountain match. She was very a la Shelton Benjamin, doing his spot like he did in Money in the Bank, running up a ladder, doing a flip. Absolutely fantastic. She had an awesome performance against the men in a triple threat revolver match at Victory Road. It's basically a triple threat match, and then it's a gauntlet done all the way through. 8 competitors one by one joined this triple threat match. Mia Yim eliminated 2 of the men early doors in the match before being eliminated herself. She had a great match with Mickie James as well. She's done some great performances, and she deserved deserves to have a great run in WWE. She was reckoning before, part of Retribution. Let's be fair, that's not a fair crack of the whip.
I don't even think she had a match at any point in the whole run in
No.
Retribution. I think she was just essentially a valet or a manager. And it's a shame because this is exactly like obviously keeping Scarlett off of Karrion Kross. But hopefully now people will see how good Mia Yim is now that she's, no disrespect to Impact, but she's on a bigger stage now for a lot more people to see her.
Absolutely. It's a massive platform. It's a massive storyline to come back into as well. Judgment Day being one of the highlights of the show. OC coming back, got a big buzz when we got the return of Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson. Mia Yim now fitting that role. I love the use of the kendo stick as well. And like you say, if they don't put them in War Games, it's a perfect way for Survivor Series. This sort of mixed idea of an 8-person tag team match, whether it's elimination or just, done as an 8-person tag team match, it certainly would be a lot of fun.
I just hope that it's a case of that she stays with the OC because I think I'd like to see her be a part of the Two Sweets and stuff. I think it'd just be an interesting dynamic for Mia Yim to see her as part of a faction, especially with the history that the other three have. I think it could be really good for her going forward. And like I said, I hope this isn't just a one storyline thing where once it's done, she leaves and goes off and does her own thing. I'd really like her to stay as part of the OC.
Absolutely. It's refreshing television, and that's what I like about it. So, Robbie Collins says, for how big, Roman is, you can't just drop him into the mid card or anything, surely. No, and the thing is, my idea there with the Bloodline, I think they would elevate them further because they are kind of the highlight of the show. Of course, you can still do some big time matches. We still haven't seen Roman versus Lashley for a long time. It's been a while since we've seen him against Strowman. Maybe you revisit a Drew McIntyre. There's lots of different things you can do with the head of the table, but I would say that at this point afterwards, you make Roman Reigns the attraction rather than just put him straight back into championship matches like you did with a Brock Lesnar, for example.
Yeah, I think he's like for a little while. If he's like, I imagine if they're going to write him off, it will be for a certain while, and then it will be a case of he'll make Brock Lesnar like appearances, and he'll be hopefully just doing like grudge matches instead of title matches. So I presume at some point after, if say for instance he was to lose that title to Sami Zayn, when Sami loses it, I would expect Roman's next match back to be against Sami Zayn to get that victory back over him again and just to essentially restart a building process for Roman.
Absolutely. Well, there have been a couple of comments in here as well. Wrestling with the Truth says, I think Roman goes away for a long time after he loses the title. And also, WrestleMania UK saying the same thing. Hope you're doing well, Mex, by the way. Fantastic stream earlier on, by the way. A Wrestle Extra on his channel. When Roman loses the title, I think he's gone. We won't see him for a while. And to go back to scripts very quickly as well, Jonesy says, my pick for scripts was Isla Dawn. So fantastic stuff indeed there. Jonesy, yes, we'll go to those questions. I don't want to lose where I am in the chat, but I'll tell you what, I think we can safely do this. We're talking a bit about Roman and the Bloodline at the moment. Jonesy did ask, could James be a good candidate to end Roman Reigns' title reign, perhaps with The Rock in his corner? I mean, that'd be an interesting way if The Rock wasn't to compete in a match. Obviously, we don't know what his scheduling is like. I mean, everyone's talking about Sami Zayn being the one. What about a Jey Uso? Could that work for you?
It could do, but you're splitting up another tag team, and let's be honest, they're one of the best tag teams on the brand. And it's like, do you really want to? Like, obviously, I know it's like New Day was a bit different because there's 3 of them, so you could have 2 of them as a tag team or 1 of them as a world champion. I think Jay could give him a really good run for his money, but I personally couldn't see Jay being the person to end it. It doesn't make sense for me, and I'd much rather have a really good tag team together like the Usos than have him as a world champion, unfortunately.
Absolutely, and I would agree with that as well. There for you, really. Even though I like the idea of the idea of this full circle storyline, it started with Jay and it ends with Jay. I think that could be really fun in a storyline perspective. But if you look at it right now, if you're going to do one of the people being kicked out of the Bloodline, everyone wants it to be Sami. That's the one that people want. They want that. Jey Uso's playing the bad guy so well. Sami's the one that everyone seems to be behind. So for me, I think Sami would be the one of the 2 that I prefer, although I do understand what that question is asking. But then who are the contenders and the best option to beat Roman Reigns? And then we'll go back up to date with our chat for the meantime. I mean, I would say, Steve, if you don't mind. Obviously, we mentioned there The Rock being potentially one of them. I think he should not win if he was to. I think your best contenders right now are probably Cody Rhodes, probably a Bray Wyatt, probably a Sami Zayn, but it's an outside chance if you were to do that. But I mean, of course, imagine the pop that you'd get if it was to happen. I feel that your 3 best right now. I'd love to see Bobby Lashley be in that conversation as well, but I'm not sure if he will be put there.
See, to be fair, you could even broaden that because you could actually add anyone to that's lost to him via a screwy finish. So you can have Drew McIntyre, you can have Kevin Owens, you can have Seth Rollins to that list. There is a good number of people that can legitimately beat him, because half the time, half of Roman wins have all been interferences. Seth is still the only person to have technically beaten him in however long in a singles competition, even though it was a DQ. So yeah, there is say 6 or 7 names on there that you could possibly see as like the ones to beat him. I think if you was to power rank it though, and you was to have him in a list, yeah, Sammy's got to be 7, probably Kevin as 6, and then but sort of top 5 is sort of mixed up between Seth, Drew, Cody Rhodes, and whoever else really. That's obviously Bray Wyatt, like you said. Do you know what I mean? It's any order really.
Absolutely. I'm going to stress, by the way, I don't want it to be Bray Wyatt. I know that a lot of people feel the same. They want him to be the attraction. But it's just the case, if we're asked the question, he certainly is a contender, because we still don't know what his vision, his direction is at this point. But obviously, someone that could have killed the world, there certainly could be a fair argument that Roman Reigns could be one of them, as you know, he's held that championship for so long. But going in, West Coast Podcast in the house. Hope you guys are doing well. Thanks for checking us out. It says, hey guys, men's war games, OC versus Judgment Day, or Bloodline versus people they feuded with, like New Day, Kevin Owens, and others. Perhaps maybe the Brawling Brutes you could fall in that as well. Let's talk about that. I mean, we've had this discussion a little bit previously. I think, especially after Monday Night Raw, I don't see it now being the OC versus Judgment Day. I think for a small second, I was teased with the idea when Seth was in the ring of like, he's going to be aligned with the baby faces. Oh my God, they are going to do it like that. But then I thought to myself, you have the Bloodline on the poster, and it's a natural 5-man stable. It's going to be 5v5. It just makes sense to do the Bloodline against people they're feuding with, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm the same as well now. After watching that the promos last night, it just makes sense. They're the biggest story on the show. Roman's the biggest champ. It's a case of finding who those 5 are going to be. I mean, you like I said, you've got a whole catalog of people that you can just dip your hand into do you know what I mean? Just do a random pot draw, and every single one of them, you got 20 people in that bag. Every single one of them will make sense. It's just who it's going to be. That's the biggest problem.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I had to predict one, I did a video yesterday. So, I mean, I'm kind of giving away the ingredients of that video now. So maybe there's no need to go and check it out. But if you'd like to, you feel free to. I've got some fantasy booking in there as well, what I don't alternatively do. But I think that Brawling Brutes are a definite that are going to be in the cage there. Depending on what happens on Friday on SmackDown, the New Day could fill those final 2 spots. But I wouldn't be surprised if it was a Drew McIntyre and a Kevin Owens, mainly because Drew, if he's finished with Karrion Kross, you know, he could actually now become friends with Sheamus again, as they're sort of all on the babyface side. KO goes about saying with the Bloodline stuff, he's been saying he's going to go for Roman for the longest time. He's been off TV for a few weeks. We know what he thinks about Sammy being in the Bloodline. He could naturally just be a swap, a trade where he goes over to be a part of the SmackDown roster. And when Judgment Day eventually attack Rey Mysterio, Rey can be traded back over to Monday Night Raw.
Yeah, that makes sense. But then, like I said, if you're going to add Brawling Brutes, you can also add Sheamus to it. So there's just it's so, like I said, you can just literally throw anyone in there and it will just make sense. It's just a case of, I suppose it's you got to look at what they're going to do coming out of Survivor Series. So I personally don't think it'll be New Day. I think New Day, the whole point of the New Day story is Friday is getting that longest reigning tag team championship run. For me, the way that the Brawling Brutes match finished, like the way they took out Sheamus as well, didn't they?
They did.
They're the Bloodline. So those 3 seem like a natural fit. Pete Dunne, I'm pretty sure, and Ridge Holland have, I think, both been in a War Games match before. Kind of makes sense. Kevin Owens has been in a War Games match as well. That's a good way to bring him back into the story. So I think that's a solid 4 there. It's just the 5th one, like you said, with Drew, depending on if he's finished with Karrion Kross or not, which I don't think he is. I think they're probably going to have another match at Survivor Series. So yeah, it's just pot luck at this point.
I hope they do it on SmackDown, and I hope they do it in the World Cup. That's what I'm going to hope. The rubber match, the opening round of the World Cup. Just get it done with, get them moving on.
I just hope the World Cup consists of people from outside of the United States, because when they tried doing this before, every single competitor was from the United States, and it's like, it's a great World Cup when they're all from one country.
Well, this is the thing. SmackDown works for this because I was thinking about this earlier before we came in. I thought we might get asked the question. So apologies if anyone's asked it further down or we're not got there yet. But you've got Canada, Sami Zayn. You've got the United Kingdom with the likes of UK, Pete Dunne, Rich Holland. We've got Scotland in Drew McIntyre, Ireland in Sheamus. We've got Germany with Ludwig Kaiser, Italy with Fabian Eichner, Mexico, Rey Mysterio, Legado del Fantasma. You've got Japan with Shinsuke Nakamura. We've got Mansoor, who's from Saudi Arabia. So we've got quite an international roster there on SmackDown. It's for the first time they could really make that work, I think.
Yeah, it would actually be nice to see them do it. And I'll have to get a drink in a minute. But yeah, it's just hopefully that they actually do it as a World Cup and not essentially a couple of guys from Mexico and the rest all from the United States, because it's not really a World Cup then, is it? It's like when they say, do you know what I mean? NFL, like the Super Bowl champs are world champions. It's like you only play American teams. So, do you know what I mean? I suppose, yes, okay, you're world champions, but there are other NFL teams or there are other like American football teams out there. But yeah, just hopefully they do it right.
Absolutely, indeed. Do you want to get a drink?
Yeah, give me 2 seconds. I'm still listening, so carry on.
Yeah, no worries. I'll just take you off the screen just for a couple of seconds and just go on to the next comment. As soon as NXT returns, I'll bring him straight back in. Jones says, I like how Lashley and Seth are swapping roles. This will be a fantastic feud for the United States title. I completely agree. I reckon that match will be at Survivor Series. Probably they'll do the next one when they do that. And it's nice to see as well, like you said, Jonesy, for a long time, you said that Lashley was going to turn heel. It looks like that's definitely taking place now for sure since Saudi Arabia. Yeah, it looks like it continued on Raw this past week. And yeah, Seth Rollins seems to play that babyface role for the last couple of weeks. He's been beaten down by heels, having matches of heels as well. Fans seem to be really involved in that idea. So yeah, I think this can be a fun storyline with swap roles. The double turn has taken place successfully. And yeah, like I said, I think this culminates in Survivor Series.
Yeah, for me personally, I just think Bobby's too big for the United States. I'd rather this just be a blood feud more than about the actual United States Championship. So Seth can lose that title and you can still do this match. I just think, yeah, the whole way they've done it, the role reversal, the way that Brock is obviously a key part of this now, the way he beat Bobby and Bobby flipping out, it's a great way to see. And it's been a long time since we've had like a face Seth Rollins, so that's going to be really exciting to see again.
Absolutely, yeah. Certainly, it's been a number of years since we had that. I think 2019 was the last time. We're going to get Robbie Collins coming up next for us now. Says, I think you let Candice and maybe Sasha or Naomi join Bianca's team. I only think Candice because she has the experience of the War Games. I think it's a fantastic point and argument to make there, Robbie. I think Charlotte is the only right for Bayley's team. I like the fact is though we've got so many people that could be in the role, and let's not forget people from SmackDown because both the Women's Tag Team Championships can go on both shows. What about Raquel Rodriguez? Aaliyah, I think, is expected back some point in the near future. Damage Control being feuding with a number of people.
Yeah, it's exciting and infuriating in the same way because it's the same with the men's one. It's like there's so many people you can throw into this dynamic, and it's just a case of, again, we're getting Netflix syndrome. We just want to know who's going to be in the goddamn match.
There's no patience in 2022. Do you want to put a third ring on there? Give us another team. Why not? Let's have 15 people in there. Let's just fill it up.
I mean, they've done it before. They've done 3-way War Games matches, so it's a case of they could legitimately do 4v4v4 or 3v3v3. So who knows?
Be anarchy, wouldn't it? WrestleMania UK. If you're having a first ever women's War Games match, you must put Sasha in there. But like you guys said, doesn't look likely right now. I mean, the thing is, we have other people that have got storyline narrative with Damage Control, and Sasha's been away for 6 months. But the thing is, though, as I said there, I wouldn't be surprised if Sasha wasn't announced for the match, and then someone's taken out of the match, and it's in Boston, her hometown, and she comes in. Even if 2 people, it could be Alexa and Oscar, although it feels like at the moment they should be in a match because I can't see them against Damage Control after Survivor Series anymore. If there's 2 other people going to be there, Candice LeRae, for example, is a fair one that you can say, well, we carry that over to the Rumble. That gives us something to do afterwards, especially if Indy Hartwell came up as well then. We mentioned the way earlier on. You've actually then got a women's tag team title match fixed.
Yeah, I suppose so. But then I think the other thing you got to worry about is, especially if they're going to have the thing they have to worry about is who is actually going to obviously win the match and what the role is going forward. Because if you're going to have Naomi return, you're not going to want Naomi to lose in her hometown. I know it's a very Vince McMahon thing to do, to have the hometown hero lose. But to be fair, even Triple H did it with Mustafa Ali a couple of weeks ago. But I couldn't see Sasha losing if she was to return. It would be the dumbest thing to do, especially on a premium live event. But yeah, it's just like I said, you just said there with Indy Hartwell. This it's exciting, but it's infuriating because we're thinking of 60 different ways that it could possibly go, and we only know it's only going to go one way, and it's just a shame that we don't know what that bloody one way is.
Gets us talking though, doesn't it? It gives us an excuse to have a live stream. That's what I love about it. Jonesy says, I'd like Charlotte and Sasha to be in War Games. Cannot see both, sadly. We'll have to wait and see, though, how it will play out. Tino's Time in the house says, what's up, Steve? We're going head-to-head, lol. Fantastic, Tino. I hope you're having a great stream anyway, and thank you for checking in, my friend. Hope you're doing well. He said, how are we feeling after last night? Oh, feeling pretty good. Really good. We've had quite a bit of discussion on Raw so far. So, yeah, it's got us talking. I think that's certainly a positive that's come out of it. Josie goes on to say, if Nikki Cross isn't with Bray Wyatt after War Games, it would be a real shame. She appeared to be taking orders from someone unseen. Would have fit her taking orders from Uncle Howdy. That's a very good point he's made there. I mean, here's what I'm going to say very, very quickly. One thing is for sure, Nikki Cross is going to be rivaling with Alexa Bliss. After this, it feels like that has started there with what happened to Crown Jewel. It feels like that those two are definitely destined. They've got history as being a former tag team as well. They mentioned that on Raw last night. And the thing is as well, when Alexa joined Bray before, this is where I think you can connect. Who was Alexa teaming with? Nikki Cross. It's like it's gone full circle. So that's why I think it makes a lot of sense. And for the moment where Nikki Cross doesn't really make a lot of sense, I think that it can make a lot of sense if in the long run she is aligned with Bray Wyatt. But I've said I want it to be the case. We'll have to wait and see if it will be the case. Steve, what do you reckon?
Sorry. Yeah. But then, this is the other infuriating thing, is people are forgetting about Doudrop, who she was recently just tagging with as well.
Yes.
So maybe Doudrop can be on the face team. There's so many dynamics, but yeah, you're right. Because it seems to be that every time Nikki's hit the ring, Alexa's always been the one she's gone for first. She's the reason they lost the match at Crown Jewel. Like, she attacked Alexa, did the spinning, the twisting DDT off the top rope. So yeah, that looks like the natural feud coming out of it. I think the only voices are currently Nikki's listening to are the ones in her head by the look of it, and I'm loving it, man. Like, I much prefer Nikki Cross over Nikki ASH. So they've already done one good thing with Nikki, which is putting her back to her original character for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm intrigued to see where the dynamic of this character is actually going to go. And speaking of Nikki, Tina's Time saying Nikki throwing away the title last night was perfect. Absolutely. Of course, she became the 24/7 champion. And then as she went to the back, she looked like she was going to throw it in the bin, missed the bin. It sounded like it smashed on the floor instead. Let's take a moment to remember the 24/7 championship. Anyway, moving on. Yeah, it's it was a championship that I think worked for about, let's say, the first 3 or 4 months in 2019 when it was introduced. And then R-Truth won it a load of times.
Everyone forgets that Drake Maverick used it to cover his private parts at one point. It was never really good. My whole thing was that because she missed the bin, I don't know if it was a live segment or not, but if it wasn't live, why didn't they have her re-record it where she actually throws it in the bin? Like, it was almost like it was, do you know what? When she missed the bin, I was like, that's actually more perfect than throwing it in the bin. It was absolutely brilliant. But like I said to you, I thought this would have been a great way to bring back the hardcore title if that was what they were going to do, because Nikki Cross is absolutely batshit mental at the minute. So, do you know what I mean? It would have been a perfect placement for someone to reinvigorate and bring back the hardcore title, but I guess not, unfortunately.
No, it feels like Triple H wasn't a fan of that championship. It's been off TV for a very long time. It seemed to be a random place of why to bring it back. So it is what it is. The 24/7 championship is no more. Go on.
I looked at Dana Brooks' Pro Fight DB, right, and she's actually been defending it and losing it on main event and live tapings. So on the live tours, it's constantly around. It's always changing hands. Like, it's one of them cheap pops for the crowds. So you get a new 24/7 champion. So yeah, if you're lucky enough to attend the shows, or what if anyone ever actually watches main event, otherwise, yeah, you're like, you've never seen it. You haven't seen it in months, but it's changed hands like 4 times in the last 2 months apparently, but we haven't seen that.
And there's me thinking that she's been the longest reigning 24/7 women. Oh, we're 24/7 champion. No, the website said it, but clearly not. Noob coming out says, hello, everyone. Sorry I'm late. You're never late, Noob. Thank you for joining us in the stream. Hope you are keeping well. It's just great to see you, my friend. So yeah, hope you're keeping well. We've got Jonesy here says, imagine how different SummerSlam 2023 will look with CM Punk back. Predicting it now, the Summer of Punk is coming if he gets the buyout by AEW. What would be your thoughts of a CM Punk return to WWE?
I would rather CM Punk come back as a Hall of Famer. Like you know how you get these guys come in for one match at the Big Four. I would much prefer it that way. I think I think he's really soured a lot of people on him with this AEW run. Like if you read the reports, that apparently he now has the wrestling bug back, so he's quite like apparently sources close to CM Punk say that he's quite willing to come back to WWE apparently, but I think the deal has to make sense. But I would rather have him come in as a Hall of Famer. He comes in and does one match every 3 months, and they make him more of a spectacle than actually have him as anything sort of really story driven. And for the love of God, keep him away from any world titles, because that just seems to be his poison at the minute.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to go well, does it? I would do a pay as you play deal if you're going to do it, pay per appearance, because of the fact that
what Goldberg's on essentially.
Yeah, pretty much. If you had to do it like that, and obviously, if he wants to come back, I mean, Robbie asked the question, "And what would you do to keep Roman Reigns? Like, you can't jump to the mid card." Well, you do Reigns versus Punk, because I mean, that's a big time main event match for any show across the world.
He still needs a main event at Mania, Punk. I think that's, to be fair, one thing he's deserved. He doesn't have to win, but I just think he needs a main event at Mania. I think if you was to look at 2024 for Mania, and if you had CM Punk back in WWE, I wouldn't be against CM Punk in the main event. Like I said, I just think obviously after his whole dynamic like 7-8 years ago, it was just something that he's deserved. So yeah, hopefully, like I said, if he does come back, don't get me wrong, I'll be happy as anything, but I think it'll be more of a Hall of Fame role. And as I said, he needs to go in that Hall of Fame as well, because he is such a vital part of WWE history over the last sort of 10-15 years.
Yeah, he certainly has. He's had a big part to play in a lot of things going on. Of course, that 434-day reign, the Summer of Punk, which we just saw there, the Money in the Bank infamous as well. So he's had some big moments. And you mentioned that in the main eventing of WrestleMania, there's 2 nights these days, so there certainly wouldn't be against if it was one of them. Another suggestion, WrestleMania UK, saying Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns need to have a WrestleMania main event. Completely agree with that. If only we could have a John Moxley as well and have the Shield triple threat at WrestleMania, that would be absolutely perfection.
Yeah, I would love to see that. I mean, we spoke before, and I said that they should, if they were going to bring him back, they should bring him back as John Moxley and not as Dean Ambrose. It just makes more sense. Like I said to you before, having come back and Roman be like, Dean, what are you doing here? And he just turns around and says, Dean, my name's John Moxley. Who the hell is Dean? Yeah, I think if you used to do it that way, I just think it'd be great, and we get that main. There's so many things we've seen over the years ago. That's a main WrestleMania main event, and that should be one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree there, Max. I'd love to see that go down at some point. And still is history with Seth and Roman at this point. Noob asking, what are your thoughts on the funny interaction between Asuka and Io Sky arguing in Japanese? It's very funny and entertaining. I know everyone don't have a clue what they were talking about.
Loved
Steve,
it.
Go for it. Take it away.
Absolutely loved it. Thought it was brilliant. Thought it was hilarious. I was laughing my head off. I presume that Asuka was doing some sort of chicken impression, but man, it was fantastic. I retract all my previous statements about these two doing promos in Japanese and no one know what they were saying, because it was brilliant. Absolutely loved it.
I've retweeted it today because someone has actually posted it where it has the translation at the bottom.
Oh, really?
So everything translated. Yeah, so you can find that somewhere on my Twitter, in amongst all the thousands of retweets I've done. But at the same time, I would have to agree with it. I thought that the interaction was incredibly great between these two. And I just love the fact as well where they got to a certain point where they'd done the Japanese like back and forth, and then Io just was like, bitch. You know what I mean? I just thought the way just that closed it off perfectly, because it was just the timing of everything was sublime between the two. We talk about WrestleMania matches. I'm not talking about a WrestleMania event here, but certainly as a WrestleMania match, I'd love to see these two go at it. They're doing a real slow burn to really make us want to see this match. They've explained the history of these two. There's something there in the water. They need to do it at some point.
And the thing is these two will do a Japan match. These two will wrestle like they used to do in Stardom, I believe it is, over there in Japan. It would be absolutely chaos. It would be hard hitting. It would be amazing.
Absolutely. Tina must have seen the same video as me, so the subtitles made it even better there. So yeah, I'll tag you that in NXSTEVE if I can after the show. Jonesy says, who do you want to see face Bray Wyatt at WrestleMania, and in what stipulation? I will probably have to think about this because it's not so straightforward unless I give you a joke answer. Steve, does anyone jump to your mind?
It's a shame Triple H is in, like, he's permanently written off now, because I would have said Triple H. Now Triple H is head of creative. I think that could have been really entertaining, but like I said, without his dynamic and knowing where he's going in a minute, I haven't got a clue. Knowing our luck, we're probably going to get Randy Orton. I think that's
That was the joke
possibly,
answer.
it makes sense. It makes sense though, because of obviously how it all ended at the last Mania. It just it makes absolute sense that that's the goal for Mania.
Absolutely. I mean, to be fair, I wouldn't be surprised either. But I'm really hoping, as he's on SmackDown and Randy's on Raw, we're going to keep them away. Who do I want to see him face? I mean, to be honest, I do think there's a likelihood that he will end up facing Roman if they can't get everything together. But to say who do I want? I mean, looking on that SmackDown roster, I don't know who's going to be a good fit for what this storyline represents. I suppose a Karrion Kross could work.
I was
Maybe a Braun
literally just
Strowman.
about to say Karrion Kross. It kind of fits.
Yeah, I mean, with the White Rabbit stuff as well, they can play into that. They seem to mention
Yeah.
other companies now. There's no point, there's no harm mentioning a Lucha Underground now that it's no longer around. So, I mean, those probably be my answers. But unfortunately, Jonesy, there's not really a great answer for you
Maybe
at the moment.
what about a Braun Strowman?
Strowman could work, yeah.
They have that history, so that could work. So yeah, we need to know the dynamic really before we start really sort of picking names out for Bray Wyatt.
Absolutely, or certainly with a sensible suggestion for it anyway, without just giving names, like you say. When do you reveal the White Six, and what impact would you have them make? I'm going to say that you do it gradually, but I would say the last of the six. I'm going to be honest with you. I think it could be Royal Rumble, even Elimination Chamber, the way that the pace of this is going.
Raw after Mania. Everyone that's won a title at Mania comes out on Raw, and it turns out every single one of them's a champion as part of the White Six.
Oh, I like that. Creative. That's
Do
fun.
you know what I mean? Like whoever, like if Roman loses the title, whoever the champ is, or whoever like Sammy and Kevin, looks like Sammy and Kevin win, and they come out and they're part of the White Six. I just think it'd be a random kick in the face that you get all these champions in one spot, and then Bray comes out and says, "This is the White Six. We now run WWE essentially because we hold everything. We hold everything that's important to you with these championship titles."
It'd be like you killed the world, we killed the world. Really, is what he's trying to say. But
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, like I say, it's really hard to say at the moment, Jonesy. When do you reveal? But I think, judging by the rest of this year, I'm going to say Uncle Howdy is what's the main focus now. Uncle Harper will be by the end of the year. I'm going to say that maybe you mentioned Raw after Mania. There could be a good idea to bring them in because Bray needs to do his first match, and maybe he doesn't get the family with him or the faction with him until he's done that. The only problem is that if you've re-signed all these people that's going to be a part of this, then it's a long time to keep them off TV. But certainly, it's had a lot of time going so far, nonetheless.
I'll tell you what I just thought of as well would be a good opponent for Bray is Cody Rhodes.
Oh,
because obviously Cody's story with leaving, starting a whole new wrestling company. Do you know what I mean? Going across the world and then coming back as this prodigal son returns kind of fits, I suppose. So yeah, it's another one there, just thinking out loud.
Absolutely. And of course, in worst case scenario, there's always Seth Rollins just to go back and do it. And you said what stipulation, Jonesy? Give us a Hell in a Cell match while you're at it. Wrestling with the Truth says, I think they should do subtitles with Oscar and Io every week and just have them keep having crazy arguments. I love that idea. Keep doing it. It's not been burnt to the ground yet. Keep them doing it. Build it up perfectly. Wrestling with the Truth, 100% yes. Jonesy says, Sheamus has to be more games. He has been so good recently. I'd also love to see Gunter. If Imperium could have been, I would have loved the Bloodline versus the Brawling Brutes versus Imperium. I thought that would have been great if they'd done that. But
yeah, that would have been really good.
3-on-3 would have been amazing. Tino Slam can see a 4-on-4 elimination match. I think he's talking with the OC and Judgment Day there. I would agree. I think that certainly seems to be the most likely. And Tino Slam says, Seth turned heel 2019 Raw after Survivor Series. God, it seems long ago. And he had his own group then as well with the AOP and Buddy Murphy as disciples, if we remember. Alyssa Stansbury, thank you for checking out the stream, says Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns would be better than Rock versus Reigns. More story between Cody and Roman. Roman said, if not left WWE, you'd never be the biggest star, Roman. And that could be a way to play the storyline out. I don't know if it's necessarily, I mean, it says better storyline. I mean, we'd have to wait and see. It's subjective, I suppose, at this point. For me, I want to see Roman versus Rock at some point, but Cody versus Roman is a big match as well at the same time.
Yeah, it depends on what they do with Roman and the titles, because if Roman is still going to be champion, then it needs to be Rock, because Roman needs to cement his place as the head of the table, especially after all the trash talking that The Rock has done on interviews recently, where he's basically turned around and said, "You're looking at the head of the table. It ain't Roman." I think that it just depends on if he's got the titles or not. If he's got the titles, well, no, either way, it doesn't matter with The Rock. I think with Cody Rhodes, it'd be a case of Cody has to be the one to dethrone Roman in that case. Otherwise, if Roman doesn't have the titles by Mania, The Rock is not the ideal match, because if you're playing, The Rock's just going to leave again, and if you're going to have Roman off TV for a set amount of time, it doesn't make sense for me. I think if you're going to do Rock Roman, that then has to have the title on him.
Yeah, I can see that argument there. I definitely can see that argument. The other thing I will say, if you compare both matches right now, obviously you look at WrestleMania next year is in Hollywood as well. There's been 90,000 tickets sold, and I'm going to borrow a quote from Bama Dave here when I was on his stream, not just recently. They've not all bought them tickets to see anything else but Rock versus Roman. They want to see The Rock on that show. They don't want to see Roman against anybody else. And imagine the amount of tickets that may go on the resale should that be the case scenario.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, those tickets will be astronomical.
Absolutely. Tina Tom says, let's do the IWC team. Tino, Steve, NXSTEVE, and Jonesy with Alyssa to handle our Rhea issue. Who is our Rhea issue, Tino? I might need to clarify who the Rhea issue is, but certainly that sounds like a heck of a team for me. But we've got quite a few other podcasts as well. Let's all join together, be one big happy family. Maybe we could be instead of the White Six, the IWC Six. Who knows? Jonesy, what a question. This is a question I was hoping we would get on this stream. If Nick Aldis don't get signed to WWE next year, it's a travesty. Certainly, I would agree, and I hope that he gets to WWE. I think the Triple H would be interested. I certainly wouldn't be against him going back to Impact either, because that's where Mickie James is playing a trade right now. But what are your thoughts with Nick Aldis and the NWA?
Obviously, it would depend. Like if you look at everything that's come out, like Aldis isn't happy with the way Billy Corgan is his name, right?
Yes.
He's obviously not happy with how the NWA is running it. He's announced that his contract is up in January. It's a smart move by him. He's putting the feelers out early. He's letting people know that, hey, come January, I'm a free agent. He screams WWE guy to me at the minute. He has done for years, to be fair. The way he's representing himself, the fact that he held the NWA Championship for like over 1,000 days or something stupid like that. He screams WWE guy to me. Like he could come in and just be amazing top guy. Essentially what Bobby Roode should have been when Bobby Roode come in from NXT. Like he could come in dressed in a $10,000 suit. You know what I mean? And the way he carries the title, he is a pure class act. And see Nick Aldis in WWE.
Absolutely. I would agree with you. He's a top class actor. And I really do hope that Nick Aldis, he has been Mr. NWA for the last 5 years. What has the NWA been without him? He's been the champion for the longest time. He put over Trevor Murdoch, who's your current champion as well, and sort of made him probably the most relevant he's probably ever been in his professional wrestling career. But I mean, the thing is for me, obviously, this looks where it stems from in Power last year. Some of the way that apparently the way that Mickie James is meant to have been treated, his wife, he wasn't too fond of. That's what's been said there across Twitter. But I mean, Billy Corgan has made comments about potential women's wrestling. Can they do the NWA style? Can they do another pay-per-view? I just think the comments that his outlook of women's professional wrestling is, for me, it's disgusting. I don't like it.
It's very dated.
Yeah, it's very dated. And like NWA is dated. And for me, I think it's going to be dated to the point it ain't going to be around for a lot longer after the way that he's been treating and talking of late. And just as another throwback comment to it, if he says the women can't do the NWA style, can Tyrus, aka Bropus Clay, do the NWA style? Absolutely not. So, I mean, the roster that he's got there assembled.
Funkasaurus.
Exactly.
Telling me he can't do the NWA style.
Absolutely. Well, there you go. But I mean, like as far as I'm concerned, I ain't gonna be watching no NWA any further. That's me and that company completely done. I won't be watching it. And I hope Nick Aldis all the best going forward. I think that him and what Mickie James did and try to do the Empower, obviously they tried to make a really special game-changing show, and the way that their attitude was towards it, not the one for me.
Yeah, like I said, wherever he goes though, Aldis, he's going to be top guy. Impact is a great fit for him because obviously when he was Magnus there, he obviously made a massive name for himself.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I said, wherever he's going to go, he's going to be huge.
He could even be a part of AEW. Obviously, let's think about it. He was part of the All In show. So there is this.
Yeah, he was, but my theory is that he'll just get lost in the shuffle in AEW. I think he'll come in and he like I don't think they'll use him right because he's not. I don't see him as an AEW wrestler. I see Nick Howard as more as a sports entertainer than a pro wrestler essentially.
I would agree with you, and obviously his match with All In was against Cody Rhodes, and where is he now? So, yeah, I think you make a very good, solid argument for you there. Jonesy, traditionally in War Games matches, someone turns heel. Any predictions on who would do this and why in both matches? I think the men to be simple. Sammy loses the match, and they turn on Sammy. So instead of actually turning heel, he turns face, and the Bloodline get more heat for it.
Yeah, that's a great shout. It's the one that makes sense because the Bloodline are one cohesive unit at the minute, and Sammy is the one that's obviously. Oh, do you know what? Even crazy, make it Jay, make Jay lose the match, and like Roman just complete. Especially after that comment on SmackDown, was it last week, where he was like, "I don't care what." Oh, beautiful TV work. The way Roman just pops his head up and looks fantastic, and I think like if you used to do it that way and have Jay be essentially the one that's kicked out for now, and then like he's the part of the whole process of getting Sammy kicked out, I think could be really good.
Yeah, I like that idea. That could be a really fun way of doing it as well there. For the women's match, personally, I don't see heel turn going on, but I expect some crazy stuff in that match. I think it could be the more hardcore match of the two, with the weapons getting involved, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I can't. Again, until the teams are fully announced, I can't really see anyone turning at the minute. I think Bianca's still going to be your top face. Asuka and Alexa are still going to be faces. And I can't see anyone from Damage Control turn at the minute. So I think it just depends on who those like fourth and fifth members are.
Absolutely. And to be fair as well, when you look at it, 2 heel turns in 2 War Games matches would cancel each other out, wouldn't they?
I suppose so, yeah.
Alyssa says, never should Austin Theory win Money in the Bank. Was supposed to be Cody Rhodes. Austin Theory was never ready. He is the worst Money in the Bank holder. He certainly didn't have a good run with the green. We did talk about this for a good 25 minutes earlier on, but have you got another point you'd like to add, NXT?
He's not the worst Money in the Bank holder, because at least he attempted to cash his in, whereas the likes of Mr. Kennedy and Otis, who lost their contracts before they even had a chance to cash it in. There's 2 different sides to that story, but he's not the worst holder. He's just the worst cash-in of all time.
I actually am going to agree with that, and I like the way you've actually brought that up. I think that's a really good point you made there. WrestleMania UK, we do not need CM Punk around. Joker. Fair play. CM Punk, to be fair, it is a toxic and risky environment if you are going to bring him back. And he also goes on to say, Io and Oscar need, I love the emphasis of some of the words here on Mex's ones, need a WrestleMania match. Keep them bumping heads. Let one eliminate the other in the Rumble. Give us a Mania match for these two. I'm down. I'm not against this idea. Absolutely, indeed. There.
Yeah,
from a comment earlier on, Wrestling the Truth, he agrees, make it happen. Tino, loving that indeed there. Noob & Co says, I would like to see Oscar and Io Sky at WrestleMania in Hollywood because it's going to be years for WWE to go back to Japan because we're still somewhat in the middle of the pandemic. And if I'm not mistaken there, Noob, then correct me if I'm wrong, there's still like a lot of the face masks when attending shows. Would that be the case? I know there was silence for a while in the shows as well. Don't think they were allowed to be vocal.
I'm pretty sure that they're actually still like. I think that's just the Japanese crowd in general. Like they're normally a very quiet crowd anyway. Like apparently the dynamic out there is really strange. But do you know what I think would be more important is the fact that you will have 2 Japanese female wrestlers in a match on the biggest stage, the biggest show of the year. I think is the more important thing. And plus, it's if anything, if you were a smart business person, you'd be like, that's a way to sell more premium like pay-per-view buys over in Japan if you have these 2 on this card.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% agree with you there. And WrestleMania UK says nothing in Los Angeles Hollywood will be bigger than Roman Reigns versus The Rock. I do agree. Like I said, I think people that's what they want to see as the match. But if they can't get The Rock, Cody would be your backup. And I do think still it could be a good story. I mean, I think that was the question is what would be a better story or would be better either way. I say subjective for me. It is The Rock of the 2, but I do think both will be great when they come along.
It just really throws a spanner in the works for who's going to win the Rumble, because essentially the Rumble winner is supposed to face the champion at Mania. So
that's true. That's a very good point you make there.
Who knows?
Absolutely. Our regular troll, Richard, is in the house. Thank you, Richard. I've picked my favourite of your 2 comments so far. So Sheamus is coming back and we'll join Judgment Day. Someone every stream is joining Judgment Day. And with a bro kick on Rey Mysterio, this is a better projection of WWE's SmackDown taping. Someone can always see ahead into the future. Thank you very much, Richard, there for that. We do like it. Tina Sun says, I haven't figured it out yet, but have a good backup just in case. Thank you, Tina. I appreciate that. Sometimes we're too far behind on the comments and we've got no idea when we get there what was being said there, Tina, so I do apologise. Scott Retro Wrestling, he says, I miss you talking about Theory. I wasn't sure what to think. Is he being punished like what happened to Corbin? Or is he a way to get? Well, I would suggest, Scott, I would say he goes on to say for a complete reset to help him build up a potential to have his match with Cena at WrestleMania. I would say we've not talked about the potential Cena match at WrestleMania, so I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you very much for doing so. We did talk about 25 minutes about it, so we couldn't repeat it all now for you. It would be better to rewind the video, but we are going to answer this question for you now. Do you think that Theory is being punished, or do you think it was just simply a repackaging idea, like we've been said there, potentially getting back up then to have a match with Cena at WrestleMania?
Just washing their hands of Vince McMahon with that one, and just completely starting again. I don't think he's going to be punished. He's a great wrestler. He's great in ring. His character work is great. But I'm loving the shout of Cena because that makes a hell of a lot of sense for Mania. That's going to be a big match.
Yeah, it's going to be a heck of a match. And I agree with you. I don't think he's being punished. What I would say is that I think that he will be rebuilt up and we'll see how it will go. I think he could be with someone in the background to stop him being for a main event push. Maybe he'll get some guidance. Someone like a Corbin as JBL at the minute. I think that's the best way to go with Austin Theory going forward.
Yeah, the thing as well, like we've just said with Rock versus Roman, it's in Hollywood. John Cena, movie star, Austin Theory. You have Austin Theory picking up a win. I don't know if you'd have both your Hollywood stars lose in matches at Mania unless they were on two separate nights, but Austin versus Cena is a good match to have.
It certainly is. And it'd be a match I would like to see go down. I hope they can actually rebuild Austin between now and then. WrestleMania UK, I believe Wrestle Kingdom in January will be the first time fans can make noise again. Wow. Wow. I mean, as I've said, I'm a very casual New Japan fan, so it's been a while since I've watched one of their shows, but if they can make noise again in January, I can imagine the noise they're going to make in the Tokyo Dome, and it makes a really exciting proposition to watch.
I wonder if they'll ever get that Nevermind Championship back off.
Carl Anderson, absolutely. I don't think Jonesy's still with us, but he did call the Never Openweight Championship the Nevermind Championship the other day. If there is any New Japan fans in that may be offended by that, we do apologise, but it was quite funny.
It's Jonesy,
a funny joke. We love your work. Fantastic stuff indeed. Scott Retro Wrestling says, if Oldest signs with WWE, would that be a sign of Mickie James maybe going into the Hall of Fame? Who would be your 2023 Hall of Fame class? I love this question a lot. And I think if Oldest did sign with WWE, I think Mickie James would be a fantastic shout. I do think, though, that the female representation for next year, I wouldn't be surprised if it was Chyna.
Chyna's already in the Hall of Fame.
Is she?
She's part of DX.
Yeah, I mean, but as an individual, I could see her going.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, I suppose so. But then, yeah, I mean, yeah, Mickie James is a guaranteed to go in the Hall of Fame at some point in the future. Absolutely. But I think for next year, the headliner for me is only going to be one of two people. It's going to be either Vince McMahon because of depending on how the court cases go, which I very much doubt it probably will be him. It's probably going to be The Rock. The Rock will headline. It's in Hollywood. It's going to be if he's going to have the match, it's going to be probably his last match for WWE. So it just makes all the sense in the world that he'll headline.
Certainly, indeed. If I had to give another name to suggest as well, I think Dave Bautista. Obviously,
because obviously his one was cancelled.
Yeah,
his one was cancelled as well, wasn't it? So yeah, he still needs to go in. So I'd like to think that he will go in the following year because I think he's a big enough star that he deserves to headline by himself. Yeah, absolutely, and of course, I assume he's tight with Triple H still, so you would imagine that he would be of that, of that as well. HHW show, hello guys, hope you're doing well over. Thank you for checking out the stream. Are you guys live tonight? Let us know in the comments. Maybe people can go and check your show out later this evening. Of course, that would be around about 8 p.m. Eastern time, I imagine, 1 a.m. in the morning for us UK folk that like to not sleep. Wrestling with the Truth says, I've wanted Aldis in WWE since his Impact days. The guy looks like a world champion. He single-handedly made the NWA title relevant again. 100% agree with the NWA world title. And I think it would be great to see him a part of WWE. As we said earlier on, I think it'd be a nice fit. Yeah, his like I said, I'd be so excited to see Nick Aldis because his character work alone is, I think, a really exciting dynamic to watch, and just the way he presents himself, and I just think it's something WWE. I suppose Cody Rhodes is something along the similar lines, but I think Cody's got a completely different sort of. The characters are just different, but I think the presentation will be the same.
Absolutely, indeed. There. Just to clarify as well, yes, HSW show are going to be doing their show this evening, and they will be focusing on Bray Wyatt's message. So that will be live later on this evening. Ovi, correct me if I'm wrong, be 8 p.m. Eastern, if I'm not mistaken. But you can check out the HSW show and give them a subscribe. Alyssa Stansbury as well. It says, if Rhea Ripley wins the Raw Women's Championship, do you think need to see Liv Morgan versus Rhea Ripley again? Only if Liv Morgan comes to Raw, because she's currently on SmackDown, so that would be quite difficult at the moment.
Yeah, I think like if they keep building Liv the way they're going at the minute as this kind of crazy psychopath who likes putting people through tables and hitting people with kendo sticks, then that's it. That would actually make more sense going forward again because of the history that they have, and maybe Liv can actually finally get a decent title win at some point in the future if that was a dynamic.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's a future long-term play, Alyssa, at this particular moment. Richard again. Oh, fantastic troll when they're in there. Says, who will be the Rhea Ripley problem with SmackDown? Lacey Evans or Elektra Lopez? Well, I mean, Elektra Lopez is back on NXT, so it would have to be Lacey Evans. But Rhea Ripley hasn't appeared on SmackDown in a very, very long time. Let's go back to the top. We've got no questions at the moment, so go back to Jonesy's questions. Apologies, Jonesy, it's taken us a while to get to these. But anyone else got any other questions? Get them in now. It's your last opportunity. We'll close off the stream in about 10 minutes from now. Jonesy says, what would be one wish each of you would have for WWE and AEW? I like it. So we've got a genie situation here, NXT. So what would be your one wish?
For me, I think it would be for AEW, and it would be a case of, for me personally, I feel that they do such great jobs building people to become champions, but when they become champions, I just feel that unless you're like a certain person, your dynamic and your story just seems to absolutely fall flat. Like for me, when Hangman was champion, he was great story building up to the point he won the championship. Then I just felt that he was essentially like almost felt like he was a filler champion, and like his run wasn't as special as what it should have been. And then the same can be said for some of the women's champions as well. Like you just feel that they do such a great job in building them to the point where they win the title, and then nothing comes of it afterwards. I think off the top of my head, apart from Jade Cargill being TBS champion, I think the only other one that's probably had a decent run is probably Britt Baker, because I think every other one, they've got no narrative after they win these championships.
I think it's a fantastic point there. I think with AEW for me, because I love your answer, by the way, it's easy to copy that answer. So to go slightly different for me, I'd want Tony Khan to capitalize on momentum. When something's happening that's big time going on in AEW, for example, when FTR, the most over thing in the company, when Ricky Starks is like over, don't put Ricky Starks against the factory. That's just a big mistake. Like, capitalize on that momentum. Don't make Thunder Rosa and Britt Baker have to wait 9 months to have a match when it was hot in March the year before. Like, try and capitalize on this stuff at the time when you actually have got people invested. Because by the time we get round to it, when he decides, now I'm going to do it, people have lost interest. So, for example, Full Gear coming up, easy for me to say, Jamie Hayter should win that championship from Tony Storm, because everyone right now is invested in Jamie Hayter. I'm 99.9% sure Britt Baker's going to cost her the championship, and they're going to have their feud going on. Jamie Hayter will go and win a title in 6 months from now. But it does feel like it's the right time. Just have it and make Britt Baker jealous and have them have a title match. That would be the way I would do it as a wish for AEW. What was your wish for WWE?
Just to play on to your point about AEW, I know exactly what you mean. Like, there's so many times that he's missed out on things that are red hot. Like, I almost feel like he almost missed out on how hot the Acclaimed are at the minute. Like, when they were heel and they had the Gun Club with them, like, they were getting over really, really well. And it almost feels like he almost missed having those two as tag team champions and, like, having that iconic moment. For WWE, it's a hard one to say because obviously Triple H has just taken over. At the minute, I can't. I'm going to let you go first, Steve, because maybe I can find something in your answer that will click something. Because of the transition period with Triple H, I'm struggling to find something because it is a transition period at this precise moment.
Because it's quite difficult, like you said there, to give a fair answer. I'm going to give my joke answer first. I'd love to write it. There we go. That's my joke answer for you. I'd love to be a booker. But at the same time, I think something that I actually genuinely would want from WWE. There's a number of things I want, really, but I'm going to say that I want an all-female pay-per-view. I'd like Evolution to come back, or I had seen the rumors going around King of the Ring could come back next year. If they're going to do that, have that be an all-men's show and do Queen of the Ring around the same time and have that be an all-women's show. But to give it an opposite answer, because I'm thinking of a couple now, another one's going ahead, I make the Royal Rumble a 2-night event. There we go.
Yeah, that's actually a great shout. The Rumble should be a 2-night event because you get, well, it is a Royal Rumble, but yeah, I know what you mean. Rumble should be 2 nights because of the Rumble should be the main event every time, not like I've seen years before where they've had that not be the main event and it's just been a championship match afterwards. It killed the momentum for me. I'm still struggling with like WWE. Like I said, I'm really enjoying the product at the minute, and I'm finding it really hard to find something that just is making my brain go, now, do you know what? They need to do that. I mean, they've done loads of good things. They've got rid of the 24/7 title for one thing. They're resetting NXT. Do you know what I mean? They're doing bit by bit, but I know what you mean with some of the stuff you said. They are good shouts, but for me personally, I just can't think of anything.
I'd say I've got one more for you that I wish. I know, Jonesy, I'm now like a genie. I'll wish for 3 more wishes. That's what I'm doing, my genie. I want the next Money in the Bank holders to not cash in on the mid-card title when they've had an opportunity to answer an open challenge earlier in the evening. There we go.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, there's so many little things you could pick at. Like, I'd like a woman to hold a Money in the Bank briefcase longer than 24 hours. Like, I want decent narrative to play out with these kinds of things. But this is what I mean, because we're in that transition period with Triple H. There's nothing I can really pick up at the minute. I suppose. Hopefully, maybe one thing is that they don't do what AEW do, and that's sign so much talent that they just don't have a spot from. Like at the minute, their women's division is absolutely stacked, and like you said, bring Evolution back. For me, even maybe you can get to the point where you can just do an all-women's show and just have all the female talent on one show, then split the men's talent between Raw and SmackDown, and you can still use NXT as a developmental, and then that way the women get their own time to shine. But obviously it depends on TV deals and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. I've got a couple more for AEW now. They've crept in now, so I'm going to have to say them now. Not have so many championships on your show every week. There's like 4 title defenses every week on Dynamite. So I think get rid of that element. So maybe have ROH have its own station, take over Dark Elevation. I think have it as a YouTube show.
Yeah.
Have ROH establish its own roster so that it's not so messy on AEW TV every week. Also make Rampage matter. Rampage doesn't matter anymore. Doesn't matter if you watch it or don't. And I used to really like Rampage, and that I think is a real shame. It was always a fun 1-hour show. So
it essentially feels like Dark now. Like it's a YouTube clip show. Like you can just go and watch it. It's an hour long, and there's not really a lot of significant things happen on Rampage at the minute.
No, absolutely not. And we keep saying, I mentioned about a whole women's show on WWE. How about more than one women's match on an AEW show? That would be quite nice as well.
Oh, I thought of another one for AEW actually. Don't do a pay-per-view and have 14 matches on the card, because that's just stupidly excessive.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to a 3-hour stream probably next week at some point. Jonas says, shouldn't Triple H have hired more wrestling people rather than a Hollywood guy?
Who's he talking about?
I don't know. I don't think Josie's with us anymore. So, Jones, we have to politely leave that one. I'm guessing if it was The Rock, then, I mean, The Rock's the biggest draw ever. If he's going on about Bray Wyatt because of the fact that they're doing the wrong storytelling, I don't know.
I think with the case with that is that Triple H is just being selective with his talent. Like, he's not bringing back everyone that's been released, because obviously there's been a hell of a lot of releases over the years. I'll go on. Who is it?
Probably talking about someone. I mean, Logan Paul's not a Hollywood guy, but he's like a YouTuber, isn't he, and stuff. Maybe he's talking about like the social media people, maybe.
Yeah, social media people are just brought in for them one-time things. Like I presume there's nothing long-term narrative. But yeah, I just like I said, he's bringing back select talent because I presume he just has an idea for these certain ones. That's what I said in the last question. Just hope that he doesn't bring back too much talent and that we're just oversaturated with people and not enough people are getting time on TV.
Absolutely, indeed. There, Jones says we'll go back to the current comments after this. So just Jonesy put these in earlier and we didn't get to them, so I want to make sure we got them in for him. We've noticed nostalgia big right now. Could a wrestling company capitalize on that by recreating aspects of the Attitude Era? Aspects of it potentially, but I think a lot of it, unfortunately, would upset a lot of sponsorship, and I think that's why it wouldn't fly today. The Attitude Era is special in the era that it was. I don't think it could be recreated now.
Yeah, I mean, to do something like the Attitude Era now, it'd have to be a purely subscription-based service, and that way they could get away with cussing and blood and a lot more violence and stuff like that. There's there isn't a lot of stuff from the 90s now that I think you could get away with, because like you sit there and go on YouTube and look back at some of the stuff they did during the Attitude Era, and you're like, my God, I was a 15-year-old kid. I was like turning 15 in 2000. Do you know what I mean? So some of the stuff they got away with, it's like, and you look in the audience and there's like 10, 11-year-old kids, and there's like some of the stuff they put out was just absolutely outrageous, and you don't know how they got away with it.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And yeah, I mean, some of the stuff then you think, and they're watching stuff now. When I watch retro stuff, I'm like, God, I'm as good as it probably felt watching it at the time. Some of the stuff you're like, time's well moved on. Like, 20 years is a massive difference. Do you know what I mean? So you don't have that
Like,
same
yeah,
feeling
like,
watching it now.
yeah, like you'll never get another ECW, because I say ECW was special for its time, but some of the stuff that, if you ever watched any of the Dark Side of the Rings, if you go and watch the one about
New Jack.
who's the New Jack? Yeah, you watch the one about New Jack, man. Some of the stuff that he got into in ECW is like, I'm very surprised that stuff was still able to go out on TV every week.
I'm surprised he got away with it then, let alone now. You know what I mean? It's yeah, of course, he's no longer with us though, New Jack. But WrestleMania UK, Liv Morgan is cosplaying as Jeff Hardy. There's no more words for that one.
No, not really. Yeah, it's such a great comment.
But no, to be fair, no, I just trying to play a pun off the song title there. But no, looking at that, really, yeah, I mean, she's trying to be a bit more extreme. She's trying to be a bit more daredevilish. I can see the comparison, absolutely. What I would say with it is that I preferred Liv Morgan with this character change because of the fact that they needed to do something with her. She completely lost all momentum after the feud with Ronda Rousey. And I'm going to say this quickly. I think there's one more match in there at Survivor Series where Liv Morgan can be seen as a threat under this current gimmick carnation. But yeah,
I suppose, yeah.
Because where does she go from here? She can be treated where she's still meant to be one of the top stars. You've now got Ronda and Shayna together. Shayna can be almost now, if Liv Morgan is seen as a threat, and then we get a rivalry of Liv Morgan and Shayna Baszler on the other side of it, and Ronda Rousey can finally go on to someone new. So I don't see who Ronda Rousey faces at the moment when it comes to Survivor Series, because she's beaten most people. She's just even beaten Emma, who's just come back.
I still think they're building to Ronda versus Shayna. I think that's the dynamic going forward. The fact that they're teaming together, I think it's just going to get to the point where Shayna will snap on Ronda, and it'll end up with those two going one-on-one, and then hopefully Shayna will win the championship and Ronda will disappear into existence, and I won't have to worry about her no more. But from Liv Morgan aspect, I'm glad that Triple H isn't doing what Vince used to do, and Vince would always be afraid to do, like with certain people, he'd always be afraid to do turns. So like when they did the whole Bayley, this story with Liv is exactly the same what they tried doing with Bayley. I think it was against Alexa, and it was like, can Bayley get extreme? But like this time they've actually just gone, oh no, Liv can get extreme, and she's going to be extreme, and I'm much happier for that. So yeah, like it's just going to be. It's something fresh, because let's be honest, she's had the same gimmick for the last, I don't know, 5-6 years, ever since she debuted. She's always been that bubbly, blonde-haired wrestler that, do you know what I mean, just is just happy to be there. And it's like like for years, she's always got to that point where it's like she's going to win a championship, but not right now. Just 99% of the way, but just not right now. And then when they did put a title on her, it just went flat within like the first week.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, the thing is, they booked her as the escape champion rather than the champion that had to actually go head to head against the people she was against. She was escaped Ronda, even if she didn't win. So, like, they would be better now if they could actually just try and make her seem like she has a chance if they did it one more time. Yeah. But we'll have to wait and see. HHW show, 10 years from now, who is better overall, Seth Rollins or Roman Reigns? I think in the famous words of Homer Simpson, don't make me choose.
I'm going to say Seth Rollins, just because I am more impressed with Seth Rollins in ring ability. I think Roman is very John Cena, and that the fact that he has like 5 or 6 or 7 moves that he'll just seem to repeatedly do in every single match. Whereas I think Seth Rollins always tries to go above and beyond and do something different. Character-wise, Seth's been fantastic for years. Roman is now getting to a point where his character is really good, and the smack talk that he does in the ring, like especially right against Logan, is fantastic stuff. But for me, I'm going to say Seth Rollins.
I like it. I mean, the thing is, if you look over the last 10 years, maybe people would say Seth if you're going to go as an overall decade of, because there were times that people weren't invested in Roman Reigns. But if you look at Roman, the run he's been on now, he is the number one guy. He is the guy that, WWE always wanted him to be. Seth, I think, has even said in interviews, I think it was Era Hawani, he said he's never felt like he is the guy, and I think until he's the guy, I think I'm going to have to say Roman Reigns, but that's a very difficult question, HHW.
Yeah.
And that's you could even argue and say that's a hard-hitting question there for you. Very cheap plug for you. I'm going to give our famous troll Richard one more go. He says Electra Lopez is at the SmackDown backstage fixing the Rhea problem. Give a cheeky wink for that for you as well. WrestleMania UK says, I totally agree with NXSTEVE on AEW. AEW only care for their world champions. Every other champion is drowning. Britt was nowhere near as good as her ascent to the title. I have to agree. Yeah, she was almost getting over like an Austin 316 at the time, which seems like a weird comparison to make, but she was really over when she was on that rise there to be like the rebel champion. And then all of a sudden it just kind of became the same old typical doctor that had to be annoying and obnoxious.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, when you know what the problem was she had the title for too long. She was champion a lot longer than what she needed to be. And I think that's what killed the momentum with Britt. Like she just had it for way too long, and it just killed all the momentum as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, it's just hopefully they'll just do something about it. I mean, Jade Cargill, like I said, is the only one that's actually. Don't get me wrong, it's starting to get to the point now where it's kind of like, yeah, okay, 30, 35, 40, and it's like, who's going to be that one? And this is the other thing they have a problem with, is that they've brought in so much talent that none of them are doing anything of significance. They brought in Ruby Soho, doesn't do anything. Brought in Athena's not doing anything. Just constantly bringing in all this talent and just not doing anything with them.
Absolutely, and that's something they need to do, which is why I'd like to see more than one women's match every single week. Yeah, we've got the scissors there for us there, NXSTEVE. I don't know if I can do it there. There we go.
Ah, wrong way, that way.
There we are. That's it. Hang on. There we go. There we go. Just for you. We've got going to grab some supper now. Great episode, guys. Nice work, chat. Thank you very much for Wrestling with the Truth. And you've been here from minute one as well, so we do appreciate it. Thank you for checking us out. As well, Scott Retro Wrestling says, would you believe it's been 25 years since the Montreal Screwjob? Survivor Series 1997 is a bad show. Spoiler for tomorrow's review. What was the first moment you remember as big as that? As big, I mean, that's arguably one of the biggest moments in wrestling history, really. I mean, I would have probably been too young to, I'd like to say I was too young. Jesus, I went through it. I was a 5-year fan by that point, but to say that I would have known about the steroid trial and stuff like that going through 94, which would have been sort of big. I suppose the thing that would have come as close to this as like oh my God, would be Hogan turning heel being NWO, but that wasn't like a question of shoot or work shoot. I mean, this was something that was really definitive of its time and really changed the industry forever. So, I mean, this is almost a pedestal on its own. There's only been few moments in wrestling history that you can compare to this. And I think, for example, like Punk Money in the Bank 2011 is one that you could compare to this. But it's a very, very special moment. And it's certainly just a show that I'd like to go over and rewatch one day, even if you say it was a bad show, because obviously you remember it for the main event. And I do remember, I feel Kane versus Mankind was also on this show.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just sitting here trying to think now what the biggest one for me was, and it's like I think because of my age, I think 97, I'm 12 years old. I don't think I understood the significance of the Montreal Screwjob when it comes to Survivor Series 97. I think for me, you're right with Hogan on the NWO turn. Maybe even things like Vince buying WCW and Shane stepping out on the last ever episode of Nitro. Yeah. I think that's quite one of them ones that's up there as well. I mean, don't get me wrong, as like a 7-year-old back in the early 90s, I remember when the Ultimate Warrior disappeared and then he made one random appearance, came back and then disappeared again. And obviously Warrior was my guy when I was a kid. So I remember little things like that. But I think for the biggest impact, I think for me, if it's not Hogan turning heel and going NWO, I'd have to say Vince buying WCW, because that's a massive one in itself.
Yeah, it was a massive one. I mean, to be fair, the invasion definitely is something that is a special period in wrestling. Like you say, that final night show with Shane McMahon being on there. I mean, I'm doing the WCW watch-alongs at the moment. I'm about 6 months away from it, and just excited to get it finished, to be fair, at this point, going through 2000. But at the same time, like you said there, the iconicness of how it was, how it played out when Vince owned all the competition, is very special, to say the very, very least. But we've also got a question here as well from Scott Retro Wrestling. So Eddie Guerrero wrestled his final match 17 years ago today on SmackDown. Tonight's review, check it out after this. We shall do that. It was a qualifying match, if I'm not mistaken, against Mr. Kennedy, to get onto the Survivor Series team in 2005. And obviously we know what followed it. But Eddie is he's heavily missed. His name's still chanted to this day.
I tell you what, that makes me feel really old that it was 17 years ago. Like, but do you know what I mean with wrestling? Is like I feel like when someone says something to me, and I'm like, "Oh, yeah, that only happened a couple of years ago," and then you turn around and go, "No, it was 17 years ago," and I'm like, "Oh my god, like where does time go?" Because it's really scary when you read something like that, and you're just like, "Have I seriously has it been 17 years?" It's really shocking to watch. But yeah, absolutely, he's totally missed. Uh, it's a shame that. Like, apart from obviously them referencing him, there's no way of still keeping his memory fresh. It's one of the ones where it's like you had to be there to see him. I suppose with a network, it makes it a bit easier. But do you know what I mean? When you're watching him live and you're tuning in week by week to see where his story goes and his dynamic, I was always a massive fan of his China storyline where those two were dating and they were doing the whole thing together. I thought it was a great storyline. But even his debut was part of the Radicals.
Yes.
That's another one that's a massive point in wrestling where you can turn around and go, those four sitting front row at Monday Night Raw is a massive thing.
I popped big time. I know, because that was back in the day that were for being in the UK, you didn't get Raw to the Friday. So they'd already been out for 3 days. It wasn't a Twitter where you've been spoilt for during those 3 days. I remember going mad when I saw the Radicals there in the row. And I was like, oh my God, because they were the reason that for me it was left to watch WCW at that point. It were all my favorites that come over in one fell swoop. I was like, right, okay. There's not much, and from that point, I barely watched Nitro after that, so that's why it's kind of good for me to go and see those bits now. But favorite Eddie Guerrero match?
I think I know it sounds cheesy, but I think it has to be. I know it's cheesy, but I think it has to be the Rey Mysterio custody battle for Dominic because the whole story. I think the storyline was good. Don't get me wrong, the concept of it is cheesy that your son is on a custody battle on a pole on a contract or whatever. I think it's really dumb, but do you know what I mean? I think the storyline was great in the way they built to it. Don't get me wrong, I appreciate things like Survivor Series, it's a great match, but I think with the storyline with that one, because it was so personal, I just enjoyed the whole dynamic of that story arc.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the chemistry between those two is unreal. My favorite is a Rey Mysterio match, but it's from Halloween Havoc from 1997. Just a flawless match between those two.
One,
It's just incredible. So yeah, that will be the one for me there. HHW say not all the women can act or bring on the mic like Charlotte. A lot of the men can't either. To be fair, I would say on that one is what I would say there. And WrestleMania UK says Seth Rollins is the best wrestler in WWE between the ropes. So I'd say in ring, I would agree with that if you compare the two, but obviously I'm going on star power and being the top name of the company, so that's why I'm going to go with Roman Reigns. But that's all our questions. I think we're going to wrap things up there, but thank you for everyone that's checked out the stream. If you've enjoyed this video, then please do hit the like button, consider subscribing if you haven't already, and like I say, it's been fun being a part of this in NXT. It's been fun having you a part of this as well.
Thank you, man. It's always a pleasure to jump on it anytime, any day. As long as I'm not working, I'm always here, man.
It's always great to have you on board. And like I say, we've gone. One of the things we did say was the Survivor Series have gone for a few of the matches. So apparently, Richard, I've missed your comment. Let's have a look. Let's bring it up there for you. Edge is at a TV series. Perry Jackson and the Olympians right now. He won't be at WWE for now. So pick someone else. There you go. Well, there you go. We've not picked Edge for now. But yeah, obviously, he's obviously not going to be around for a little while. Perhaps maybe Royal Rumble season, maybe a safer bet. And that's why it's probably best. It's not for Beth for right now. But Richard, apologise for missing that comment for you. I mean, that's pretty much the show for us anyway. I'm going to try and do a separate video on Survivor Series, maybe how I would book it or what matches I think will happen. Let me know if you want to see that in the comments below. And like I say, Full Gear's coming, so predictions on the channel next week. Then the week after that is Survivor Series predictions. So there's a lot coming on the channel in the meantime. NXTEVE, I'm sure, will be back for another Q&A very soon. It's been great to have you on board. And you never know, maybe at some point you can test my knowledge again with another quiz. Hope I can do better than last time.
I will try my hardest to find a really good one for you for Survivor Series. I'm gonna find some abstract one that will really test you. But yeah, we'll do it at some point, and yeah, we'll make it another clip for you because like I said, when you uploaded the last one of the Rumble one, I thoroughly enjoyed watching that back because it was entertaining as anything.
Yeah, there we go. And that's available on the channel for right now if anyone hasn't seen it. But that's all from us. Thanks for watching. Take care. Enjoy yourselves. It's been a fun Q&A this one. Rhea Ripley and now has her problem solver in Mia Yim. She returned on Raw last night. We believe Austin Theory was the worst Money in the Bank cash-in of all time. We wasn't a fan really of how that was booked out. The 24/7 Championship is no more, but the first War Games match has been announced. And we think a couple more matches there look likely for Survivor Series. Like I say, I'll try and compile that into a video for you tomorrow. But that's all from us. Take care. We'll see you next time.